Hey guys, I know it's a snow day today, but I do not want you to get behind. So I am going to record you 2 lectures to cover the material from today that we would do in class. So today we are going to start with 3.5 part 1, which is absolute value equations. First thing is you need to understand what an absolute value is and what it looks like. So an absolute value is going to look like little sticks or bars that are going to be on either side of an expression. And what an absolute value represents, it represents a number's distance from 0. And one thing you have to remember is that a distance is going to be always positive. There's no such thing as a negative distance. So your distance, no matter if you're moving in the positive or negative direction, should always be a positive number. So for example, let's say I asked you for the absolute value of 4. So if you think of that in terms of the number line, what that is asking you is if you went and located 4 on the number line, they're asking you how many spaces away from 0 it is located. Well, 4 is 4 spaces away from 0. So the absolute value of 4 would be 4. I could also ask you for the absolute value of negative 4. So same thing, if you went to your number line and you went to negative 4 on the number line, how many spaces away from 0 is the number negative 4 located? Well, it is located, again, 4 spaces from 0. Because we're in an algebra class, they're not just going to ask you to simplify absolute values. What they're going to ask you to do, though, is to solve absolute value equations. So an example of an absolute value equation is something like the absolute value of x equals 4. So you can do that with the number line if you want to. You could draw your number line. And what you're doing is you're looking for numbers that are 4 spaces away from 0. So you could go 4 spaces to the right, which would put you at positive 4, or you could go 4 spaces to the left, which could put you at negative 4. So notice that an absolute value is going to have 2 answers. You can also do this with algebra. What you have to do, though, is you have to get the absolute value bars to go away. So I like to do this, I call it breaking it out of jail by making the bars go away. So when you break somebody out of jail, sometimes they turn to the good side, which would be your positive 4. Sometimes they turn to the bad side, which would be your negative 4. So you notice you should have 2 answers like this. When you list your solution set, you would just list it as x equals negative 4 or 4. It's not written as an ordered pair, just a list of possible answers. Now, the problems are going to get more complicated with time. So let me show you an example of a problem that's a little more complicated. So let's do this one. 3 times the absolute value of 2x minus 3 minus 8 equals 25. And the directions say solve the absolute value equation. So there's several steps that you need to do. First thing you need to do is you need to isolate the absolute value. So when you have the absolute value isolated, it's going to look like you have an absolute value on one side. It doesn't matter what's inside of the absolute value. You don't really care. And it's going to be equal to some number on the other side. Okay, so if you look at the example we have, 3 times the absolute value minus 8 equals 25. There's 2 numbers that are causing the absolute value to not be isolated. First would be the minus 8. So let's add 8 to both sides of the equation. So that will leave you with 3 times the absolute value equal to 33. Your absolute value is still not alone because you have the 3 in front of it. And the 3 is multiplying the absolute value. So the opposite of multiplying is dividing. So you'll have to divide both sides by 3. Notice that I did not distribute the 3. You're not allowed to distribute through an absolute value. So now you have the absolute value equals 11. And that's what we wanted. We wanted the absolute value to be on one side and a number to be on the other side. Once you have your absolute value isolated, the next thing you need to do is you need to check to make sure there's actually a solution. If you find that your absolute value of whatever is equal to a negative number, you have to stop. There is going to be no solution to the problem. Don't keep going. Simply write no solution. If the absolute value equals a positive number, then you get to keep going. In this particular problem, our absolute value is equal to positive 11, so we'll continue on with the problem. Once you've decided that your absolute value has an answer, then you're going to do what I call, which is break it out of jail. And again, this is a Danielle step, so if you read the textbook, they're not going to use that terminology. So when you break it out of jail, some go to the good side and some go to the bad side. So take what is in the absolute value, which is 2x minus 3, and you're going to write that down 2 times. Some go to the good side, so that will equal the positive 11. Some go to the bad side, so that will equal negative 11. So notice that you have 2 little miniature equations. 2x minus 3 equals negative 11, and 2x minus 3 equals positive 11. Once you have your 2 equations, you can solve each. Okay, so to solve 2x minus 3 equals negative 11, I'll add 3 to both sides. And then I'll divide both sides by 2. So one of my solutions is that x equals negative 4. To solve the other equation, 2x minus 3 equals positive 11, I'll add 3. Divide by 2. And my other equation is x equals 7. So you have 2 answers to this problem. X equals negative 4, x equals 7. Let's look at another one just to make sure we got it. Let's say I asked you to solve the absolute value of 2x minus 1 equals 7. So first you want to check to make sure that your absolute value has been isolated. You can verify this because all that's on the left-hand side is the absolute value. Then you have an equal sign. All that's on the right-hand side is a number. So you are isolated. Once you're isolated, you want to verify that you will actually have an answer. So look at your 7. Your 7 is positive, so there will be an answer. So you can keep going and solving this problem. Once you've verified you have an answer, you need to break it out of jail. So you write your 2x minus 1 2 times. Once equal to the positive 7, once equal to the negative 7. And then once you have it written down twice, you can solve. So for each one, to solve 2x minus 1 equals 7, we would need to add 1. So that'll give us 2x equals negative 6. And 2x equals 8. And then in each scenario, you would need to divide by 2. And that would give you x equals negative 3 and x equals 4. So again, you have 2 answers, negative 3 and 4. Often people get a little nervous when they see fractions, so let's look at one that has a fraction. The absolute value of 4x minus 2 all over 3 equals 2. So again, run through your check. Is the absolute value isolated? It is. There is nothing on the outside of the absolute value bars on the left-hand side, so your absolute value is isolated. Is there going to be an answer? There is, because the absolute value is equal to a positive 2. If it was equal to a negative 2, you would stop. So now you can break it out of jail. So you get to write down what's in the absolute value bars twice. 4x minus 2 divided by 3. 4x minus 2 divided by 3. Sometimes they're a good guy, so that's positive. Sometimes it's a bad guy, so it's negative. Now, most people don't like working with fractions. So the way you can get rid of the fractions is by multiplying both sides by the common denominator of 3. When you do that, on the left-hand side, the fraction is simply going to cancel, which is going to leave you with 4x minus 2. And then on the right-hand side, you'll have your negative 6. For your other equation, the fraction will cancel, 4x minus 2. And on the right-hand side, positive 6. So then once you get that, you're just solving your equations. So to solve your equations, to undo the minus 2, you would add 2 to both sides. 4x equals negative 4. And 4x equals 8. And then to undo the 4, divide both sides by 4. So your two solutions are x equals negative 1, x equals 2. Last one. Let's try this one. 2 times the absolute value of x minus 4 plus 6 equals 4. Okay, so first thing you have to do is make sure your absolute value is alone. Your absolute value is not alone because you have a 2 multiplying it and you have a 6 being added to it. So first thing you have to do is get rid of the plus 6. The opposite of plus 6 is a minus 6. So that'll give you 2 times the absolute value of x minus 4 equal to negative 2. Your absolute value is still not alone because you have the 2 multiplying it. Remember, you cannot distribute through an absolute value. You have to undo it with division. So we'll divide both sides by 2, which is going to leave you the absolute value of 4 minus x equals negative 1. Before you break it out of jail into your 2 equations, you need to verify that you are going to have an answer. You have an absolute value equal to a negative number. This is not allowed. Do not continue on with the problem. Stop. This problem will have no solution. Okay, guys, there's your first set of notes. Let me know if you have any questions in class on Thursday.